So good afternoon to all of you. We have, I think, a challenging task because we just had a panel discussion which talked a lot about e-commerce and then the future of brick and retail industry. So given in that context, I think developing a franchising, a very healthy franchising operations in an e-commerce setup, I think it's a real challenge. But I think I'm going to be helped by a very eminent set of panelists because people are, the panelists are from very different background, which I think is very good because we are not going to talk about a particular industry. We have people from the wellness, which I think is a very, very strong in franchising, probably the strongest. Then we have people in the lifestyle space, both apparel, footwear, as well as the leather accessories and the food service in Baskin Robbins. So we have, I think, a very good mix of leaders with varying backgrounds and varying experience in terms of franchising. So in terms of our discussion, what we want to do is, at one level, I think some of us are also franchisers because we also do some of the international brands as franchisees here. And also at other level, we actually franchise out and create franchisees at the ground level. So what we will do is keeping in, I think in line with the theme of the conference, which is all about retrospect and thinking about the future. We will sort of organize our discussion in three buckets. The first bucket is more about to understand what, in the views of our panel members, the status of the franchising industry in India, because I think we need to understand that in greater detail, because if you really look at any of the international market, the first strategy, once you establish a brand, because the first task, of course, is to establish a brand. If you don't have a brand, you can't do anything about it. Once you establish a brand, the second step, people, in terms of the growth strategy, people talk about franchising as a key growth driver for the business. So how do we stand, how do we stack up in India compared to that kind of a evolved franchising operation in some of the developed markets? Because if you really look at US, which I think is one of the most evolved franchise markets, almost 6% of the GDP of a very large economy like US come from franchising. And it also employs fairly a large number of employees. Almost 6% of employment is in the franchise industry in US. Even in a developing market like Brazil, the corresponding percentages are 4%. But when you come to India, I think it's still at 1%, which I think is a bit of a shame. Because one thing which is one thing you will realize is large, if the market is large, like India, both in terms of the size as well as in terms of the physical size, because we are a very large number of towns and cities, franchise, I think, plays even a stronger role, because it's very difficult to control a large market sitting in headquarters. So there's a huge, huge opportunity for franchising in India. And in terms of the absolute numbers, we are talking about almost $13 billion of sales happening through franchise network across various categories. And then even if you assume that they grow at the same pace as the organized retail, which is growing at around 30-35%, other than probably the food retail, this franchising operation has a potential to grow to a size of around $40 to $50 billion, which is very large. So we need to, if we are to nurture this industry, particularly in the context of an e-commerce kind of a scenario, I think we have to really reinvent this industry. And even from the current practices, even without any e-commerce, external threat from e-commerce, we have to reinvent this industry. And then, of course, how do we adopt to the e-commerce scenario? With this, I would like to start with Sanjay to talk a little bit about his experience in terms of, open the discussion to the panel with Sanjay to talk about his experience in as a franchisor, because he is also a franchisor, and how he, as a franchisee as well as franchisor, because he is a franchisee for one of the international brand, and he is also a franchisor giving out franchisee to the franchises in India. So I would like to start the discussion with Sanjay, talking about his experience, what he feels doing well for him in terms of the franchising business, and what are the areas where one has to focus to from the improvement point of view. Yes, Sanjay.
Thank you, Suresh. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, rather. See, we've been, I represent the Gravis Group in India, and we have the master licensee. We are the master licensees for Baskin Robbins. So we, we represent Dunkin' International. Dunkin' Brands in the US owns Baskin Robbins as well as Dunkin' Donuts. So in a way, Jubilant and Gravis are cousins. Okay. In fact, our DNA has been franchising. We've been in the franchise business for close to 20 years. And we've seen all the ups and downs. In fact, we've seen more of ups rather than downs. And I think the only way, as Suresh said, is going to be up, because we've realized it's been a lot of learning over this period of years. And we've got currently close to about 600 stores across in about 140 cities. So that's the level of penetration we've had. In fact, we've got a very strong franchise base of about 450 odd franchisees, with a few having multiple stores. So that's going to be a focus in the years to come, a lot of multi-unit franchisees. And we've realized over a period of time that initially when we ramped up, because we felt that was really the way to scale up, we got the model right first. We understood our margins, and we understood what we could really retain as a brand, as a master licensee, and what we could really share with franchisees, because I think it's very important to understand the operating model. Because the primary objective of franchising is to ensure franchisee ROI. Only then is he going to really invest. I think over a period of time we've realized that it's important to really grow cluster-wise rather than spread thin. Because I think you at times get so excited and euphoric about franchising that you just want to expand to every nook and corner of the country. But that could really be a pain point, because you really do not have the operational bandwidth or the back end to really back it. So if you don't have that, it's not really going to work. So you've got to be really prudent in your decisions, and that's what we've realized. In fact, our next 3 years, we've really aligned our strategy to only ensure that the way we are ramping up, that we'll open about 75 to 80% of the stores in the top 20 cities, and these top 20 cities really contribute to 60% of our business.
So I think the key word here is actually the market saturation for the franchise business to really do well. I think if you're able to saturate the market, then you are able to build the brand well in that market, and then franchisee makes money, and then once he makes money, then he delivers the right amount of service. So I think now we will shift discussion to Pushkaraj, who handles Lakme Lever, because if you really look at the wellness industry, I think throws a completely different challenge in franchise business. The investments are pretty high in terms of, because the wellness requires a slightly larger property. And second, I think more important is the people, because you have to train them much more intensively than any of the other categories. So I would ask, Pushkaraj to generally talk about his experience on franchising with specific focus on how do he manages the investment of the franchisee and the training of the people.
Thanks, Suresh. So a quick heads up or a plug about Lakme. We run about 240 salons across 50 cities. We've been in franchising for the last 14 odd years. We are part of a much larger master brand. So the Lakme brand actually exists across cosmetics, I can see all the women nodding. So cosmetics, skincare, and of course salons and beauty services. But we have a master property, which is Lakme Fashion Week. So the most important thing that we have to be mindful of is that our brand integrity across all these verticals needs to be pristine and needs to be there. So therefore our method or our model of franchising is a very mindful and a high support method. We have not really felt the pains of high expansion because we have really not gone down that route. And as I look across the audience, I can actually see the ecosystem that Lakme has really built, right? And in today's world, you can't compete on your own. you have to build ecosystems which compete with each other. And I have Rajesh there, who is one of our franchisees and a very successful one at that. So I have to be careful about not sort of, over-promising. I have Pratap, who's, handling a large marketing program. And, what we've tried to do in Lakme is to make the franchisees a part of the ecosystem. And you have to be really responsible when you're dealing with, I would like to label franchising as opium, right? And opium is not opium the way we know it, but it's OPM, other people's money. And therefore, you have to be really responsible that you're using other people's money and other people's talent. You should de-risk the process which you want to franchise out, and that's really what we have done at Lakme. So a franchisee really brings the ability to manage a pool of people. Apart from that, everything else is very common across all our outlets. So we have actually dissolved our franchisee structure and company structure. We have one structure which manages by region. We have the same set of processes which go across the network. We have the same audit control mechanism. Our franchisees rate us for their customer satisfaction. So, I am rated for the customer satisfaction that a franchisee gets from the Lakme team. And over the years, we have really evolved our process to a level where this is an ecosystem and a partnership that we have really built. Today, we have about 170 outlets. About 75% of our business is from the franchisee run salons. And most of our franchisees are today becoming multiple unit owners. What we have tried to do, and that's really helping get better profile of franchisees rather than more franchisees to the party, is we have got associations with banks which will offer non-collateral loans to the right kind of individuals, the right professionals whom we are willing to back. We've also got industry programs where talented salon managers, talented operators or talented experts can own Lakme salon. So what we'd really like to do is to have a bunch of talented franchisees who are professionals, who can execute with discipline, and the company supports them in this journey, and all of them really grow into multi-unit scale franchisees. So, ideally everybody in this room should be owning a Lakme salon. And we've got the background, the financial resources to be able to support that. What I'd really like to add is the last bit of experience. So today we've got one of our most successful franchisees is a Symbiosis MBA from I think 2001 or 2002. Recently we've, and I would like to call it recruited because they're almost part of the company, recruited a franchisee who's an ISB grad. We are talking to somebody who's an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad, and we're really happy that we are able to get this kind of talent into the ecosystem that Lakme is building. And that's really the whole drive at Lakme, to get high quality franchisees who will then steer the business and run it like a partner rather than run it like a franchisee or like a vendor. And more on that theme we can build on this later.
So good. I think I just want to add one more to, ask Pushkaraj one more question, because I think it's a very interesting debate, which most of us go through. He talked about, a franchisee, having multiple units. Actually, a success of a franchising operation is when you find that, the same franchisee opening multiple units, because he's happy with the business, so he's wanting to expand with you. On the other side is, many people, also talk about having not to grow a franchisee to a bigger level, to a certain level, try and, keep it small and have individual franchisee. So this is a debate people have. I would like to hear Pushkaraj's views on this, because he made an interesting point that then after that we'll move on to Rajesh.
So what I firmly believe is that you should help people expand to their level of incompetence. Right. So if there is a franchisee who has the capability, and you actually get surprised. So just some days back, there is a franchisee who joined the Lakme fraternity about 6 months ago, and is now really keen to expand to a multi-unit franchise, which is a 5-unit agreement. And the lady actually runs the salon. Sorry, I'm going to add a little bit of color with this anecdote. The lady runs the salon. Her husband is a very eminent lawyer. They're based in Delhi. He said, I want to meet somebody from the company. And he said, I can only meet you on a Saturday because I'm running a very busy schedule. So I met him at a coffee shop on Saturday. He said, I don't want to know anything about capabilities, all that I have seen. I just wanted to meet you to thank you. So I was wondering, because this was a different conversation. Normally conversations are about ROIs and, some support that is required and all that. He said, all that is absolutely fine. But I've been married to this lady for the last 14 years. I've discovered what a wonderful woman she is. But in the last 6 months, I have, reached and understood a side of her that she's an astute businesswoman, and she had all these qualities that she could scale up this unit. And I just wanted to thank Lakme for helping me discover my wife in a different way. And I think I just wanted to highlight this, that, this is a lady who was, a homemaker, bringing up her children. She's taken over this franchise unit, and today is raring to go and is expanding to 5 more outlets, and in a busy competitive market like Delhi. She's not sitting in a smaller town where it's a little easier to expand. You've got the the bandwidth. So in a very competitive market, there's someone who's completely new to business and has gone ahead. Of course, I feel happy that Lakme is able to provide the support, but what gives us even more joy is that we are able to bring out the best from people like that. So to answer your question, there are franchisees who can go to multi-unit, and we would really like to see more of those. If there are some franchisees who are already part of the ecosystem right now, and we know that their capability is not to go beyond the single unit that they run, we are happy to be with that. But the ones that we are really welcoming are people who have the potential to go to multi-unit, because that's where they will start getting scale and put better resources in the system as well.
Let me move on to Rajesh. I think Rajesh is one person who has the experience of being a franchisor as well as a franchisee. So I would like Rajesh to answer, how we sort of, bring this balance, because there is a certain expectation from his franchisor, and then how he balances that expectation, with the franchisee he has.